Hey, it's Larry Dillon from Scalable Insights Podcast. I'm here today with Jeff, the producer. Jeff, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Jeff's not feeling well today, unfortunately. Poor Jeff.
I'm in a crunch position.
Oh, boy. So I've got my fisherman's outfit on. I'm a Maine fisherman. Up in Maine, we call lobsters bugs. I'm fighting off a cold as well. We got some exciting folks coming in for the podcasts. We're going to have Bill Casey. And we're going to have Chase
Gallagher.
Chase Gallagher again.
Mm-hmm.
All your college kids eventually will be working for the guy who went to high school and is crushing it. We're all going to be working for Chase at the end of the day.
I thought you were talking about me.
He's going to rule the world. We're going to rule the world. We're just modest about it. So, a lot of really exciting things going on. We came back from the MSP Expo. The response has been great. We hit our first gate. We've been doing this, 2 months now?
2 to 3.
And 130,000 combined views.
Probably over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got our first gate was 250 followers.
And we just passed that yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We got to 251.
Yeah. So that's the first gate.
Yeah.
And so we're excited. And our whole goal is, we want to share with people who are interested in growing their business just what the mindset is of people who've done it before them, and give them some ideas on how to grow their business. We've got some cool programs, so stay tuned. There's going to be some exciting new things coming out. Jeff and I have been brainstorming about some really cool programs that I think you guys will all be interested in. We're also looking for, if you have friends, associates, or folks that are killing it in business, let us know. We're also really interested. We're searching for some women in business. Yeah. We're reaching out to folks as we speak. Remind me when we meet up with Bill, he's got some folks that he's going to recommend. So, okay. We're just really excited about, and we appreciate you guys listening in and subscribing and liking and commenting on the podcast. It's been really cool.
I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jeff was at the IT Expo with us. He's never done any of this stuff before, but man, everyone, we were down there with a crew. Who did we have? We had the folks from Alex.
Cyber something?
Cybercells. Yeah, so we partnered up with Cybercells down in Miami at the IT Expo, and that was really good. That's a great company to check out. Yeah. We got to fly her up. She's a rock star.
Cool.
She's definitely a rock star. So we'll wrangle her into this. I said, next time you're in Philly, let me know. We'll have you up for the podcast. And she just looked at me. She goes, I'm never in Philly. She's in she's in the islands right now at a conference. And I'm like, thanks for telling me. She's like, oh, man, it sounds, the ring had the funny tone. Uh-huh. And I'm like, what are you, in Europe? Because we just saw her. And she's like, no, I'm in the Bahamas for a conference. Really? Yeah. Hello? What are we, chopped liver? Yeah. So anyway, check her out if you're in the MSP space. Check out Cybercells. Really, really good, stuff. So today I just wanted to cover a couple of topics. What's the low-hanging fruit at your company that is the easiest thing that takes the least amount of resources to uncover more deals. And I'm going to say one of the things that you want to look at is your dead lead dumpster. There's lots of statistics on the percentage of opportunities that are erroneously disqualified in your dead lead dumpster. And all of them come in around 70%. So when I say, if you have, let's say you've got 100 leads in your dead lead dumpster. These were given to your sales team. These were purchase leads, leads from marketing, leads from web requests, whatever it is. The first step is make sure you keep track of those. And if your sales reps aren't going to work them, put them in the dead lead dumpster. And then what you should do is I would hire an outsourced firm to follow through with those. There's a lot of companies. You don't have to use ours. We do that. But just use any decent outsourced company to call in to those dead leads. Now, you got to allocate funds to make at least 10 attempts into calling into those. So if you have 100 leads in your dead lead dumpster, that means there's 7 viable deals. And if your average deal is 10 grand, it could be 700 grand worth of business, which wouldn't be shocking. So that's 700 grand in opportunity. If your closing ratio is 30%, that's 210 grand worth of business that you could get out of that. If you got 10 leads in your dead lead dumpster, the stats are 70%. And this is the way they usually word these surveys that they do. We've done our own research and we find the numbers probably higher than that, but don't take my word for it. Google it. Look at Serious Decisions, probably has some research on it. Marketing Sherpa. There's all kinds of marketing coaches and consultancies that do the research on this. But the wording is usually 70% of the leads that have been disqualified go on to buy from a direct competitor. Because when we were at the convention, I was talking to people, we talk about leads, boring, whatever. That's what we talk about. But they know, companies, business owners know that sales reps will disqualify leads they never even called. Who was I talking to the other day? And it was horrifying. He's like, yeah, I would get leads, but I would just disqualify them just because I didn't have time to work, but I didn't want my compatriots to get the leads. They're like children.
Yeah.
But even if you have 10 leads in your dead lead dumpster and your average deal is 10 grand, that means there's 70 grand worth of business. If your closing ratio is 30% again, that's like $210,000 worth of potential business in your dead lead dumpster. So do yourself a favor and check into that. The other thing is, I was talking to a client this morning from Utah, and I was telling him a story about, we had a client for years in Houston, Texas. I don't know if I told you this story, Jeff.
I don't think so.
Great inside sales guy, like top shelf, not top 10, probably top 10%, not top 10 in the world, but top 10%, really good inside sales rep, got the leads, never gets fooled. And I had been at a convention and this guy happened to be attending that convention. And I said, hey, direct mail works. If you're buying our leads or if you get leads or call-ins or whatever, send them multiple direct mail pieces. And all you have to have on the direct mail, by the way, is I sell voice over IP. I'm a local Philadelphia company. We service small, medium, and large businesses, whatever you do. But just make it really clear on that postcard and send any lead, like 2, 3, 4. If you can send them 7, that's great. But you can assign like a clerical person. And it doesn't have to be a different piece each time. Just send the same piece out. Just make it really clear. This is what we do. So anyway, he was at this convention. And then a year later, I see him and he pulls me aside. He says, you know what? I got to tell you a story. We got your leads. I got Bobby. He's really good at working your leads. Particular lead, talked to the guy. The guy swore on a stack of Bibles that he wasn't moving, right? Let's say it's Jimmy, right? So Jimmy says, we're not moving. Absolutely not. Take me off your list. Now, this inside rep normally doesn't get fooled. Normally, put him on the rotation. And so he DQ'd it. So it's in the deadly dumpster now. But they did what I said. They sent out the postcards, and usually it's the bigger postcards, like I don't know what it is, like a 7x11 or, but a big postcard, 6x9 or something. He says, Larry, when I tell you, you said to just send out like a simple post. It was the dumbest postcard ever. It was he's in the movie business. It's picture me in my warehouse with my foot up on a box in the warehouse, and it says, I move offices, right? So 2 weeks after, Jim swore in a stack of Bibles that he wasn't moving, postcard goes out. Jim gets the postcard, calls my customer, not the rep, because he put his name on it. And he calls up, Bob or whatever. And he says, hey, Bob, I got your postcard. Do you move warehouses? And he's like, absolutely. He goes out. He had a bid against, I think, 2 other movers. First job, $176,000. He says, we got that. They liked the job we did. We got the follow-up job, which was $340,000. No other bids. $500,000 from a lead by one of the best inside sales reps, DQ'd.
Wow.
Listen, when people go to your website and fill out a form and you call back and they're like, no, we're not really interested. That doesn't mean that they're not really. How many of these instances do I have to tell you about? And once I trigger that, if I'm at a convention or if I'm on a webinar, once I trigger that, people in the audience, will anybody else have that experience? Bunch of hands go up. You tell me your story. You tell me your story. Everybody's got a story like that.
Yeah.
We had a case where a guy by the name of Bill Paxson worked for us. And every quarter we, call our prospects. Every quarter, if you're in one of our target markets, my reps, religiously follow up. And they're always, if I see people at a convention, they'll be like, Bill or Vin or Danielle is the most persistent and professional salesperson I've ever met. They're always on top of things. But anyway, so Bill had been calling this guy for like 3 years. Oh, by the way, one of our reps just closed a massive deal from a prospect she's been following up with since 2011.
Wow.
But it sounds like a lot, but what she does is normally leaves like a 15-second voicemail. Hey,
Right.
It's Danielle again, just checking in.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle again, just checking in. So what is that? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So whatever that is, 11, call it 12 years, 48. What's 48 divided by 4? 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of voicemails. Maybe a total of an hour, if she talks to him. But anyway, so Bill calls this prospect he's been calling for years, and the guy's like, listen, Bill, you're most professional, persistent sales rep I've ever met. Listen, your service is just not a fit for us. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You have every right to disqualify that lead, right? Chuck it overboard into the deadly dumpster. Bill hangs up the phone. He doesn't know why he does this. We always gave the reps, which is a good idea, have a stack of postcards for every one of your reps. Opens his drawer, pulls out a postcard. He says, I only had a pencil. He takes a pencil, right? It might as well be in a Crayola crayon, and writes the guy's name and address on a postcard. He says, I licked a stamp back in the day and put a stamp on the postcard to the same guy that just told me, hey, Bill, we're not a match. Put it in the mail. 2 weeks later, this same guy calls him back and says, hey, Bill, I got your postcard. We're going to go ahead. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But it just tells you that it's impossible to qualify leads. And it's if you're disqualifying leads, like Robin Robbins, who is a phenomenal coach, I agree with like everything that she coaches on. Like, she's on the money. If you're an MSP, you should definitely check that out. But she says once you get a trigger, once you find an opportunity, once they go through some sort of gate, they fill out a form, you buy the lead, you do this, you do that, you never give up on them. Never. And that's the winning model, 100%. I could go on and on and on for days of people who were, you'd have every right to DQ it. And it's like, well, that takes time. Yeah, it does. And you know who spends the time, and you know who allocates inside sales teams, and you know who has the biggest inside sales teams, the most profitable, the fastest growing companies. If I'm in a town and you have sales reps and you have zero inside sales, so you're making 0 dials, 0 hours in inside sales, and then someone comes in and starts doing 500 calls a month, 1,000 calls, 2,000, 5,000 calls a month, they will destroy you. That's what when I was in the moving business, I got so much business I had no right getting.
Mm-hmm.
But I outdialed every one of my competitors. I just outdialed them. And what I've observed is if you feel like you don't have time to follow up on leads like that, you're losing business. You're losing business. Your outside sales reps won't make cold calls. They just won't. They shouldn't. They won't. If you talk to Ed Katz, who's a consultant for the commercial moving industry, but his advice transcends all B2B. It's a different personality. It's a different methodology, but but if I told you have 100 leads in your dead lead dumpster, if I told you there's $210,000 worth of closed business, $700,000, 210,000 of which you could get, if I told you, write me a check right now for $20,000 and I'll give you the $200,000 worth of business. If you're a smart business person, you'd be like, how fast? Right? It's simple math. Like you should be willing, here's another little gem. You should be, if your margins are north of 40%, north of 50%, you should be willing to pay 10% to get revenue. So, minimum. And there's a model, and if you go to business school, you'll find out that that actual number is greater. There's a mathematical formula in managerial accounting that basically says, I'll say it. If you want me to explain it in detail, and I can tell you the most successful massive entrepreneurs, I know they went to business school because they follow that model. Guys, Salesforce, 50% on sales and marketing, by the way. When they were at 50 million, they spent 25 million. When they were at 100 million, they spent 50 million. When they were at 200 million, they spent 100 million. When they were at $1.2 billion in sales, they spent 600 million in sales. Don't take my word for it. Pull their K10s and look through it. The most successful company. And the reason is that somewhere along the way, Benioff learned this. One of the first things I learned in business school is you continue to spend money on sales and marketing to maximize profitability. You continue to spend money on sales and marketing until the last thing that you do, the last dollar you spend, gets you $1 in gross profit. And all of the super mega successful companies do that. You could just look at their K10s and see. Cisco was spending 25% on sales and marketing versus Nortel, who they destroyed, was spending 10% on sales and marketing. Anyway, if somebody wants to go through it, it takes a few seconds to go through why that's true. And searching for the least cost, and that's how you maximize profitability. And searching for only the lowest cost marketing tool guarantees that you will not maximize profitability. And if anyone's interested, I can go through the math and show it to you. Just like, and I know, I can tell who went to business school based on their K10s. And it's all of the mega successful companies. You can tell there's somebody went to B school and learned the same thing that I did. It's not that complicated. But once you go through the math, you're like, aha, now I understand. So, and literally, I'm going to say it one more time, only doing the thing that gets you the most revenue for the least amount of money will guarantee that you do not maximize profitability. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but anyway, it can be proven mathematically, not from my math, but just from stuff that's in managerial accounting. It's, anyway, so check your dead lead dumpster. It does take some effort to go through that. You could do an experiment and hire, but it's got to be a good outsourced company that's going to really do a good job of like making 5, 10, 15 attempts into those folks and do the right type of follow-up. I've got a couple customers that are, by the way, that they only get jazzed for a lead, whether it's from us or whatever, is after like the 9th or 10th time that they don't answer the phone, that they don't get in touch with them. And they're like, and I know that too. It's like, well, I know that my weaker competition, most of my competition gave up after one, nobody called me back. And so anyway, that's low hanging fruit, but, if you don't trust me, go to Google and find research on how many quote dead leads are actually viable leads, and go on, literally this is the criteria that they use, go on to buy from your direct competitor. That's how they measure it. They don't just measure it by like, oh, they're interested. No, do they go on to buy from your competitor? So there's a massive amount of opportunities. And the problem, Jeff, is that in the case with the folks from Texas, the lead in Texas, where the prospect swore on a stack of Bibles they weren't moving, they weren't interested. They just lied. Like, buyers are liars. So that's just one piece of the puzzle why, and I've done the proof that's impossible to qualify leads, and it's impossible to disqualify leads. And that's why Robin Robbins says you never give up. You just don't ever give up. So if you're in B2B or even in B2C, just beware, count up, and you should have a facility for, you got to manage your sales reps. You got to say, okay, here's, we dished out 30 leads this month. What happened to all of them? And then you got to calculate out like, okay, 10 turn into appointments. What happened with the other ones? Oh, they're all disqualified. Well, then take those 20 and assume that they got a false negative. And the thing is that the most successful companies that I deal with that know this, they just kind of smile, and they know their competition gives up on it. They love the fact that, I would much rather have a buyer that's a liar that keeps my competition, the door shut, because I know most of my competition will give up after one no. And clearly 90% will give up after the second or third. So, the person that's like, yeah, sure, come on out. Yep, we're buying this. And then you show up at a bidders meeting with like 10 of your competitors in the same room at the same time. Literally, they'll do that. Or the worst is when you're competing against like 4 or 5 other companies, you don't realize it. So those ones that are easy wind up getting, 1 million proposals. The ones that are more difficult, you should thrive on those. The other thing that I would suggest to you is that if you set an appointment with a prospect and they blow off your sales rep. So let's say you have an inside-outside sales team, or you have a outsourced company that's setting appointments for you. One of the best qualified leads is someone that said, I'm interested in talking to Jeff about blue widgets. And then Jeff doesn't show up, doesn't call, doesn't show up. It happens all the time. It doesn't mean that Jeff is not interested. It might mean, but more often than not, people do not set appointments just to waste time. Yes, there are cases where people are just sort of flaky. But let's say that's 20. Let's say it's 30% of the time. That means 70% of the time they're truly interested. Now, when someone blows me off, now I've got an advantage because I'm gonna, you owe me one. So I will work doubly hard to get that person back on the phone and get the I'm sorry out of it, and then be like, well, I can be out there next Wednesday. And again, my weak competition, if that happens to them, they're just going to cry and go home and be like, oh, it's a bad lead. Like, well, you know what I mean? Like, do not let that deter you. It happens to everyone. And I tell the story. We're here in Philly. I had a client in a prospect in Washington, D.C., which is a nightmare drive. Nightmare. D.C. is like the worst traffic. We told him, we got to leave at like 4:00 in the morning to beat the traffic. We're going to get there early, have breakfast, and then come to your office. Are you going to be there? Absolutely. It's a big tech company. And then we drive down, get up at 4:00 in the morning, drive down, go to the receptionist, and she says, hi, can I help you? And we're here to see Bob. She goes, oh, Bob's not in today.
Yeah.
Did we just cry and go home? No, we're like, Bob's buying.
Yeah.
Bob's going to buy. Bob's going to see us. And stop crying and wasting energy. And especially, listen, if you've hired, and forget about us. Like if you've hired, an appointment setting company to set appointments, why are you wasting your time calling them? Like, as long as they've got a recording that this person said that, don't waste your time calling them. Call the prospect back. Like, stop this nonsense. It's like nothing. Like, if you think the sales process, the marketing process is like a perfect structured thing, it isn't. People, if they're buyers, they could be, why do they do it? I don't know. I would never do that to a salesperson. Although I probably have. Honestly, I probably in the, 40 years I've been in business, I probably blew off sales calls. Not because I wanted to, but other stuff happens. Mm-hmm. So stop getting upset about it. Just call the prospect back. Find out what's going on. But don't sales reps and managers are like so quick to disqualify opportunities where the winners, and I'll tell you, this is one of the key separators from, I talked about the victims. We know who they are, the sort of the average Joe, and then the rock stars, which is like the elite, the top 3-4%. They all have the same attitude towards this stuff. Oh no, they're buying from me. Why wouldn't you take that attitude like, oh no, Jimmy blew me off after I drove down? No, Jimmy's buying from me. Mm-hmm. Now Jimmy's buying from me because I will get the appointment. Jimmy will see me. Mm-hmm. And that's the attitude of a winner. The attitude of a loser is like, why did they blow me off? Like, really, seriously? Why are you pondering all this nonsense? Mm-hmm. It's like they're the buyer. They don't have to follow your process. They don't have to be nice. They don't have to be punctual. And I got to go. Yep. So listen, that's all I got, Jeff.
Alrighty.
Wasn't a long podcast, but I'm telling you, look into this, do something about it. Just change your attitude about this, and you'll be surprised at how much revenue you can get from this. So, Larry Dillon, CEO, Wendover Corp, and Insight PRM. Thanks for tuning in, Jeff.
See you later, and subscribe.
Click the like. Talk to you.